Hello and welcome to our readings from Lancashire Life for July. Your readers today are Kathryn and me, Rick. And our first story is about a Lancashire artist whose work is shaped by sky and sea. In a quiet pocket of rural Lancashire, Rachel Kellett works from her family home, surrounded by evidence of the world that inspires her. Seascape collages pinned to the wall echo big, open skies. Flora and fauna-inspired ceramic tiles rest along wallpaper samples patterned with softened heritage motifs. Together, they form a body of work designed not to shout, but to settle. Pieces intended to sit comfortably within a home, encouraging calm, reflection, and a slower way of living. Whether as a feature wall in a dining room or a small personal detail tucked into a bedroom or living space, Rachel's designs are rooted in an appreciation of the outdoors and the rhythm of the seasons, qualities shaped long before she considered turning creativity into a career. Rachel's interest in interiors began early, sparked by television programs that explored how spaces could be reimagined. I was fascinated by how spaces could be transformed, she says. Programs like Grand Design and George Clark's work really stayed with me. Weekends were often spent roaming local car boot sales. St. Michael's, Stanner and Norcross, where objects carried traces of past lives. I remember picking up a small ceramic bowl, she says. It was quite simple, but it felt old, like it had a story behind it. I think that was the first time I really noticed that connection to the past. That awareness of continuity and craft was reinforced at home. Her father, a vintage vehicle enthusiast with a background in agricultural machinery, shared a passion for restoration and preservation, while her mother's love of gardening attuned Rachel to the subtle variation found in the natural world. Colour, texture and pattern were absorbed instinctively. I'd look at rugs, curtains, furniture and objects and think about how I'd combine them, she says. I didn't realize at the time, but I think that was where it started. Rachel went on to study art and design at Blackpool Sixth Form College, developing a technical grounding that continues to inform her work. Just as important, however, was recognizing how she preferred to work. I've always known quite early on what I want a finished piece to look like, she explains. I prefer to spend time refining that rather than working through lots of stages for the sake of it. After completing her studies, she stepped away from art for a time. It was only a couple of years later, while working as a teaching assistant at her local primary school, that she returned to it, initially without any intention of selling her work. An inquiry to the Art Room Gallery in Garstang changed that, leading to her first pieces being displayed there, where she still has a presence today. Those early works took the form of collages, inspired by wildflowers drawn from the hedgerows and fields close to home. It started as something I did to relax, she says, just picking up a pencil again at weekends. My mum's always been a keen gardener, so I grew up noticing what was growing and when. Wildflowers felt like a natural place to begin. While florals remain part of her portfolio, Rachel's practice has since widened, particularly into seascape collages that draw on the Lancashire and Cumbria coastline, Silverdale and Arnside, with their expansive views across Morecambe Bay, feature frequently, alongside inland landscapes such as the Forest of Bowland and Beacon Fell. Her process begins on location, photographing scenes that later become the foundations for her work. From there, she sketches an outline before building the image through collage, a technique she has developed herself and one that is deliberately time-intensive. A watercolour wash is applied first, establishing the sky, a subtle nod to Turner's influence and his expansive treatment of light. I then use old magazines which I keep and organise, she explains. I tear small pieces and build them up layer by layer, almost like a jigsaw. It's as much about the concept as it is the finished image, she says. Using discarded materials is part of recycling and making something new. A shift in direction came in 2024 during a period of personal change. After leaving her role at the school, Rachel spent 3 weeks travelling through Devon and the Cotswolds in a 1973 Volkswagen camper van she had restored with her father. Structurally sound but dated inside, the van was carefully rebuilt, original features such as curtains and seat covers retained. That trip gave me time to think, she says. I knew I wanted to do something creative, but I wasn't entirely sure of what that would look like. I love having a vintage camper van that's been restored rather than replaced. It's not about modern conveniences, it's about character and history. Encounters with independent shops and thoughtfully designed interiors, particularly those celebrating heritage patterns and traditional craftsmanship, sparked a question. How might her artwork move beyond the wall and into functional spaces? She returned to William Morris's familiar maxim, have nothing in your house that you do not know to be useful or believe to be beautiful. A lino cutting and printmaking course earlier that year proved to be a catalyst, as did a visit to her local pottery studio in Pilling. I've always admired Victorian tiles, she says. When I mentioned that, I was encouraged to try making my own. From that moment, I was hooked. Rachel's tie-making process is entirely hands-on. Designs are sketched, transferred onto raw clay, and carefully carved. A mould is cast and left to dry before clay is pressed in by hand. Each tile is then left to dry, fettled for refinement, and fired. The first firing strengthens the clay, she explains. After that, I paint and glaze each tile before it goes back into the kiln. They're not perfectly uniform. That's what gives them their character. It's something you don't get with commercially produced tiles. Alongside ceramics, wallpaper has become a natural extension of her practice. Beginning with hand-block printing using carved lino, designs are later developed with a British manufacturer, digitized in a way that retains the subtle irregularities of the original print, and produced using eco-friendly inks. It's important to me that it still feels handmade and is respectful to the environment from where the inspiration was started, she says. It's a key part of the process. Historical references, from William Morris to 19th century pattern books, are present but softened through muted colour palettes that allow the designs to sit easily in contemporary homes. Her heritage floral pattern, for example, plays with scale, pairing enlarged peonies with smaller foliage to balance tradition and modernity. A typical day begins with a cycle around the village, whatever the weather. It's a good way to clear my head, she says, especially if it's raining. Much of her time is now spent producing tiles, often cycling to the same local pottery studio where the idea first took roots to paint and glaze pieces ahead of final firing. Long sessions dictated by the practicalities of working by hand. Evenings are reserved for developing new wallpaper ideas, including a collection inspired by 18th century English Delftware. I originally thought about applying it to tiles, she said, but it's been done quite a lot, so I wanted to approach it differently. The result is a body of work that feels unhurried, grounded, and deeply connected to place. Whether expressed through collage, ceramic, or print, Rachel Kellett's designs reflect a respect for landscape, history, and process, proof that the quietest influences often leave the longest mark.
We're next invited to spend 24 hours in Birkdale. Writer and freelance PR and communication specialist Keely Southworth spent her childhood summers in Southport and moved to Birkdale 3 years ago with her partner and their blended family of 6 children. She loves the village for its independent shops, vibrant food and drink scene, and easy access to beaches and green spaces. In the morning, she suggests, the village and its residents are blessed with plenty of brilliant ways to start the day. A range of independent cafes means there is a great choice of places to sit, meet friends, or enjoy a family breakfast. Cove, a converted old bank with vaulted ceilings bathed in natural light, is all about fueling up with goodness. Its smoothies and juices are made fresh to order and perfectly complement the tasty breakfast menu. Like many places in the village, it's dog-friendly and provides a perfect setting for coffee catch-ups with plenty of seating inside and a sunny terrace for watching the village spring into life each morning. It also regularly hosts wellness activities with classes including breathwork and yoga flow to ensure every day starts mindfully. A short stroll further down Liverpool Road brings you to Samuel's. Stop here for delicious coffee and cake with lots of sunny outdoor seating. Its themed hot chocolates change regularly and pair perfectly with a slice of one of the many homemade cakes. If you then would enjoy a walk, the Ainsdale and Birkdale Sandhills Nature Reserve is perfect for families wanting to spot wildlife. Each winter, English longhorn cattle from Lancashire Wildlife Trust are moved on to the local reserves. In the afternoon, Birkdale has a wide range of independent shops along its high street. The village boasts 2 family-run butchers, a greengrocer, a fishmonger, and an award-winning shop and deli, the Birkdale Cheese Company. It's been a fixture in the village for more than 40 years and is stocked with more than 150 cheeses, charcuterie, and specialty foods. The team is always happy to offer advice, and you can even sit outside the shop with cheese and crackers and a glass of wine. The perfect break while shopping. If you're looking for gifts, the brilliant Sally B Lifestyle offers luxury candles, stationery and homewares. Head to the back of the shop and you'll find a large pre-loved section packed with beautiful new and nearly new clothes, accessories and shoes. Other highlights include Luxury at number 39, an independent boutique, and Busybodies, specialists in lingerie and nightwear. Both have been village fixtures for many years. For some of the best homemade soup and sourdough around, try lunch at Crozier's. Afterwards, walk it off with a stroll to Victoria Park along Rotten Row, famous for its beautiful volunteer-maintained gardens and borders. The park is a much-loved green space in Southport, full of historic character, wide open lawns, mature trees and beautifully maintained surroundings. This spring also saw 5 new paddle courts open there, giving visitors the chance to work up a thirst before heading to Penelope's on the park, which serves a wide menu of large and small plates complemented by delicious cocktails in stunning surroundings. For the evening, the village offers something for everyone. Wine Rack Birkdale combines the opportunity to buy a bottle of wine, champagne or spirits to take away or pay corkage and enjoy it in store. It has a lovely relaxed atmosphere and the welcoming, knowledgeable staff make it a popular choice. Dining at Bistro Verité is a must. With 2 AA rosettes, this small bistro has long been listed in the Michelin Guide and recently featured in Harden's Best UK Restaurants 2026. Weekend tables are booked well in advance and it's easy to see why. This family-run restaurant serves French and internationally inspired dishes with a menu that changes regularly to reflect the seasons and locally sourced ingredients. Then continue down Weld Road to Coast, where this bustling bar and restaurant remains a firm village favourite. Its heated terrace and expansive outdoor seating make it the go-to spot for catching the final golden hours of a summer's day. Along the street, and a little treat for traditionalists, is the Little Bear. Warm wood interiors and dark walls create cosy pub-style spaces and the perfect backdrop to bar games by candlelight. Its Tuesday pub quiz attracts packed crowds each week with tables hotly contested. New arrival, Limoncello, serves fabulous Italian food and wine, while Barrique is the place to head for tapas and delicious wood-fired pizza. Finish the night with a seat in Ushka Bar, which boasts a huge collection of premium whiskies. You really are spoilt for choice. If you want to extend your visit with an overnight stay, the Vincent Hotel on Lord Street in Southport is a stylish place to rest your head. It also features a chic bar and an excellent restaurant serving a wide range of dishes which you can enjoy while watching the bustle of Lord Street pass by. For an added treat, there's also a relaxing spa offering a number of different treatments. There are some events going on this year in Birkdale. The first being the 15th Golf Open. In July, the world's best golfers return to Royal Birkdale for another compelling chapter in golf's original championship. The Southport Links will stage the Open for the 11th time, with the championship play beginning on Thursday the 16th of July and concluding on Sunday the 19th, when the champion golfer of the year will be crowned. The following month in August is the Southport Flower Show. Victoria Park transforms each summer, welcoming more than 55,000 visitors to enjoy a celebration of horticulture, food and lifestyle. Celebrity chefs, entertainment spaces, family fun, stunning show gardens and a wide range of exhibitors make a fantastic day out, and that runs from August the 20th to the 23rd. A little later is the Southport Air Show, August 29th to 30th. Renowned as one of the UK's premier air displays, the Southport Air Show offers an accessible, world-class spectacle along the town's beautiful coastline. For many years, the event has thrilled generations, bringing together families, aviation enthusiasts and the local community in a shared celebration of flight, skill and engineering marvels. Later in the autumn, there's the Southport Comedy Festival. That's the October the 2nd until the 18th. It's the 15th annual Southport Comedy Festival and it returns to Victoria Park for its 6th year, with comedy stars from across the entertainment world descending on the town for 17 days of non-stop laughter. More than 6,000 people attended in 2025, with a record-breaking 10 sell-out shows, making it the most successful festival to date. And finally, Books Alive, October the 24th to 31st. Books Alive is a reimagined literature festival designed for families and young readers. Running throughout half-term, the event will fill the town with storytelling installations, live performances and author-led workshops, transforming Southport into a living storybook.
July is the month of the famous Lytham Festival. But how did it all begin? The answers lie in our next story, 15 Years of Lytham Festival. Back in 2010, over a pint and a throwaway line, how hard could it be? Daniel Cuff and Peter Taylor set in motion an idea that would put Lytham firmly on the live music map. Today, Lytham Festival draws global megastars to Lancashire's coast, injects millions into the local economy, and sells out crowds of up to 25,000 a night. Yet, chatting ahead of this summer's landmark anniversary event, Daniel and Peter still sound slightly bemused by what they've built. While this year marks the festival's 15th anniversary, the journey spans almost 2 decades, with the event losing 2 years, 2020 and 2021, to the pandemic. It feels a bit strange, admits Daniel, the quieter half of the duo, whose focus lies in the operational machinery behind the scenes, the stages, fences, production and logistics that festival goers rarely think about unless something goes wrong. I don't think we ever envisaged when we first started the festival it would get to the point it is now. We definitely didn't do it thinking this is going to be a thing forever. We just wanted to do it because we thought it would be fun, Peter says. The pair first crossed paths working on a charity theatre project at Lytham's Lowther Pavilion, before being approached by the local council to help run a one-off event called Lytham Proms on the Green in 2010. The concert proved a success and, year by year, evolved into what is now Lytham Festival. Both born and raised in Lytham, they went on to form live events company Cuff and Taylor, now responsible for hundreds of concerts and festivals across the UK. Back then, though, they had no grand business plan, no 5-year strategy, and certainly no roadmap to becoming the UK's largest independent outdoor events promoter. What they had was instinct, ambition, and an ability to balance each other perfectly. I think one of us has always managed to pull the other one back when things got tough, Daniel reflects. There have definitely been moments over the years when one of us has thought, "Why are we doing this?" and the other one has reminded them why. That dynamic, Peter the showman and Daniel the meticulous operator, is perhaps the secret ingredient behind Lytham Festival's longevity. From the beginning, they approach things differently. While many festivals grow cautiously, Lytham evolved through sheer determination and a refusal to think small. In year 2, they booked Status Quo, a headline act that many locals initially assumed must surely be a tribute band. People genuinely didn't believe the real Status Quo were coming to Lytham, Peter recalls. Even then, Daniel was already thinking bigger. After ordering a giant LED screen for the festival's second year, the screen arrived so enormous it dwarfed the stage itself. So the following year, Peter laughs, Dan booked a bigger stage to match the screen. That mindset, bigger, better, more spectacular, has shaped the festival ever since. Today, the production values rival stadium shows, with enormous screens, cinematic lighting rigs, and immersive staging rarely seen at events of Lytham's size. There aren't many festivals with a 25,000 capacity that have the level of production we do, says Daniel. We punch above our weight. One artist in particular marked a turning point, Kylie Minogue in 2019. We'd tried to get Kylie for years, Peter says, but what made it special was the production she brought. Pyro, dancers, streamers. It felt like a stadium show dropped onto Lytham Green. It also raised expectations. There's never been a point where we've sat back and thought, right, we've cracked it now, Peter says. The pressure just increases every year. That pressure is perhaps nowhere more acute than in the weeks leading up to the festival itself. While festival goers are planning outfits and playlists, Daniel is worrying about workforce resilience, transport, logistics, and keeping hundreds of staff motivated through 184 shows across the country this summer. Weather, unsurprisingly, remains their greatest enemy. Yet even when disaster threatens, the pair pride themselves on exhausting every possible option before cancelling a show. That's the Cuff and Taylor way, Daniel says. We always try our best for the audience. That determination has earned them enormous loyalty, not only from fans, but from artists too. Much of that comes down to the atmosphere backstage, where performers are treated with almost boutique hotel levels of care. There are artisan coffees at 5 a.m. load-ins, local gin in dressing rooms, fresh pizza vans, games areas, and even masseurs. Riders are fulfilled to the letter, including one infamous request for a single blue Smartie. We did it, Peter laughs. Of course we did it. Then there are the stories, like accidentally leaving Bananarama behind at a Blackpool hotel just minutes before showtime, or taking Boyzone out for a day in Blackpool and nearly losing one of them at the pleasure beach. And then there's Lionel Richie. He arrived by helicopter, Peter recalls, Because of our licence restrictions, he absolutely had to be on stage by 9:30 p.m. I watched the helicopter go overhead at about 9:20, and I'm already panicking. After landing nearby, Richie was rushed to the festival site, but instead of heading straight to the stage, he disappeared into the dressing room while stylists made last-minute adjustments. At this point, I'm thinking, we are literally going to lose our licence over Lionel Richie's hair, Peter laughs. So I had to walk in and say, I'm really sorry, but you need to get on stage right now. Richie calmly threw an arm around him and replied, Hey, come on, let's get on stage. We were pushing him up the stairs to the stage, Peter says, and somehow he still finished with about 10 seconds to spare before curfew. He came off, gave me a high five, and I just thought, I cannot believe we actually pulled that off. For all the glamour, however, Lytham Festival has never lost sight of its roots or its importance to the local area. An economic impact report conducted in 2023 estimated the festival injected more than £9 million into the Fylde Coast economy. That figure is now likely closer to £12 million annually. Maintaining local goodwill has been crucial. Residents' meetings, event liaison teams, and even exclusive preview evenings for neighbours have become an essential part of festival planning. We're only able to do what we do because of the support of the town, says Daniel. That relationship with the local community has helped transform Lytham from simply a music event into something broader, part festival, part lifestyle experience, part Lancashire institution. And while the lineups span generations, from Def Leppard and Motley Crue to Lewis Capaldi, Pitbull and The Strokes, the curation is deliberate. They book artists that appeal to a broad audience across all 5 nights. We always want a wild card, Peter says, someone unexpected. This year, Pitbull fills that role, complete with fans already planning bald caps and sunglasses in tribute. I'll probably end up on stage in the bald wig, Peter jokes. As for the future, neither founder pretends to have a master plan for the next 15 years. In many ways, they believe their lack of rigid vision has been their greatest strength. The music industry changes too fast, Peter says. Who knows? Maybe in 15 years we'll have K-pop headlining. What they do know is that live music will continue to evolve into something more immersive, more experiential, and more accessible. Cuff and Taylor have invested heavily in accessibility across all their events, introducing sensory spaces, British Sign Language interpreters at every show, neurodiverse support teams, and tailored assistance for festival goers with additional needs. We want to set the gold standard, Peter says. People now come to our festivals because they know that they'll be looked after. And despite all the growth, both men still retain the same simple belief that sparked the idea 15 years ago. There's nothing better, Daniel says, than standing in a field with a cold drink, watching your favourite band.
Next we have Roots of Change. When Ciara Byrne swapped London life for Formby's Pinewoods, she couldn't have predicted the transformation ahead. Now her fabulous forgotten woodland is changing young lives across the region. When Ciara Byrne left her London home as the COVID pandemic swept across the city, it set in motion a chain of events that transformed her life. A year earlier, Ciara and her husband Ben had bought a house in Formby with the intention of fully relocating by the time their young son Leo started school. But life had other plans. Our offices closed in February 2020 and friends started to get ill. So we packed a couple of bags and moved up here. We never went back, says Ciara, who's 42 and who grew up in Crosby. I'd been in London for 16 years and was ready to leave. I didn't want Leo going to school there. We wanted him to grow up with more space. But with Ben a staunch Londoner, there were some negotiations on what their next chapter would look like. We looked at moving to the home counties, but they all felt like commuter towns, says Ciara. The house we now have in Formby came up for sale in 2019, and after I showed Ben what we could afford up here, we ended up buying it, with no clue what was going to happen the next year. We used to come up for weekends, and the idea was to sort out jobs before moving. But with Kiara put on furlough from her then job as a development manager, the change in the family's routine had a profound impact on Leo, who was just 2 years old at the time. We spent every day on Formby Beach and in the Pine Woods. The change we saw in him was huge. His language, appetite, confidence, sleep, physically, all massively improved. He was noticeably happier and healthier. I started to realise what impact our London lifestyle had been having on him, where he'd be dropped off at his inner city nursery before breakfast and not picked up until 6 p.m. It was during this time that Kiara was introduced to Laurel's Wood in Formby, which her dad had bought in the 1990s. Back then, he got funding to plant trees on it, but then it had just been left for 25 years. It was never somewhere we went regularly, so I had no connection with it, says Kiara. During lockdown, he suggested we go and look at it. When we got there, it was completely overgrown. We had to cut our way in. I didn't know anything about woodland then, but I could tell the trees weren't healthy because they'd never been thinned. With time to reflect, the visit sparked a thought in Kiara. The idea came to me. Was there a way we could offer the experience and transformation I'd seen in Leo to people at Laurel's Wood who wouldn't normally access that kind of space? Having faith in the concept, Kiara began setting up the business whilst on maternity leave after welcoming second son Oren, now 5. I had the belief in the business and I commissioned a feasibility study to see if there was interest and demand from the public and from schools and charities. It all came back overwhelmingly positive. I decided not to go back to work because I believed there was potential in it. I negotiated the lease with my dad, established the business with 3 founding female directors, and we set up a community interest company, a CIC, and then set about opening up the site. With my background, the development manager, the idea of creating something from nothing was my job, so I had the belief in myself. What I didn't have a clue about was how to set up a business. There was a lot of learning along the way. After making the site accessible and drafting a woodland management plan to restore and protect the space and protect its nature and wildlife, Kiara contacted a local primary school. The first visit the team hosted was a group of 30 reception class children. It's crazy now looking back. We didn't have toilets on site or any of the facilities we have now, but I brought in some bushcraft leaders and the feedback was incredible, says Kiara. Even in that first session, they noticed the children who struggle in the classroom were completely different in our setting. That was back in July 2023, and we've had the same feedback for every single visit since then. That has underpinned the main objective of the business, to use Laurel's Wood to help young people who struggle in the classroom. 3 years on, Laurel's Wood has hosted nearly 100 schools from across Lancashire, Southport and Merseyside, and now works with charity partners, including Everton in the community, to overcome barriers such as the cost of coach hire to bring children to the site. Once in a tranquil setting, which is a haven for wildlife, including red squirrels, roe deer and hares, the children take part in tailored activities, including archery, nature art, survival skills and treasure hunts, all designed to boost self-esteem and improve mental health and well-being, whilst amongst nature. The transformation Kiara has witnessed in some of the children has exceeded anything she anticipated when starting out. We've had young people who are selectively mute in the classroom. At one session I was working with a young boy who was about 8, and he used a saw to cut a medallion out of a piece of wood, recalls Kiara. As he was decorating it, I asked him what it was, and he told me about it. When I turned round, his teacher was crying because she'd never heard this child speak. There's a teacher who's a big supporter of ours and who teaches special educational needs classes. She said in the classroom, some of the children are so dysregulated they throw furniture and aren't able to sit and take part in anything. But at Laurel's Wood, they're so calm. The first time she came, she sat there stunned. The CIC gets funding from the Forestry Commission to bring 25 schools a year to the site, and a woodland playground was created with lottery funding. Commercial revenue is being generated through initiatives including an early years playgroup and hosting corporate away days. As a not-for-profit organisation, any profit is reinvested back into the mission of the business, says Chiara. We've applied for grant funding for a number of projects, but ultimately our aim is to become financially self-sufficient. Spurred on by seeing this positive impact when schools come for a day visit, the team has launched Laurel's Wood Academy, which brings small groups of teens aged 14 to 16 for regular visits over 6 weeks. We've realised that for a particular group of young people, the experience has been transformational. By coming to us, they can learn in a different way and take part in activities like tool use, firelighting, conservation work, and gain an understanding of how to look after a woodland. We also want to raise awareness of careers in outdoor industries that might be better suited to these young people and how they learn. The overwhelm that children are growing up with now, and I'm not criticising anyone because we're all in it, is spending more time on screens and less time talking to people. It's all contributing to this heightened anxiety. But what we're seeing is that spending time outdoors is the antidote, and being in a woodland has a real benefit to physical and mental health.
Our next story is written by Jenny Bennion from the Wildlife Trust for Lancashire, Manchester and North Merseyside, and her story has a rather surprising title. There's no such thing as a seagull. First things first, there is no such thing as a seagull. This may come as a surprise, but the birds that wheel about our coastlines are usually a mixture of different species of gulls. Identifying the different species of gull that are around at the seaside can be tricky, but here are some of the most common species that people can see. The herring gull. This is the classic seagull, and probably one of the easiest to identify, as adults are noticeably bigger than most other gull species. They also have pink legs. Most other gulls' legs are yellow. Their back and wings are a soft pale grey, and their bills are bright yellow with a distinctive red spot underneath. Sadly, herring gulls are now on the UK Red List of Birds of Conservation concern, having seen a 50% decline in numbers of the coastal population since the 1970s due to the loss of nesting habitat and lack of natural food availability. The lesser black-backed gull. Slightly smaller than herring gulls, lesser black-backed gulls have slate grey upper parts, a black tail and a bright yellowy-orange legs. On Walney Island in Cumbria live a staggering 1/3 of the world's population of lesser black-backed gulls. Their population is doing slightly better, but is still classified as amber on the UK Birds of Conservation concern list. This is attributed to reduced breeding success resulting from reduced feeding opportunities due to the closure of landfill sites and a reduction in fisheries discards. The great black-backed gull. Even bigger than the herring gull, great black-backed gulls can be distinguished by their extra-large size, big square head and almost black upper parts. They are the bullies of the gull world, using their size to intimidate other birds and steal their food. They are adaptable and will eat almost anything, even sometimes swallowing rabbits down in one. They breed almost exclusively at the coast, but have also seen a decline in numbers and are now on the UK Red List of Birds of Conservation concern. The common gull. Despite its name, This is one of our less common gulls, and looks like a smaller, cuter version of a herring gull that's missing the famous red spot on its beak. Also on the UK Red List of birds of conservation concern, common gull numbers are swelled in winter by an influx of continental common gulls. Common gulls have a charming habit of paddling their feet on soft ground to imitate the vibrations of rainfall and lure their invertebrate prey to the surface. Black-headed gulls. Also inhabiting our coastlines in summer is the black-headed gull, although again, this is a bit of a misnomer, as these diminutive gulls actually have a chocolate-brown head, and only in summer. In winter, their head fades to white, with smaller, darker spots above their ears, making them look as if they are wearing tiny headphones. An island on a small reservoir in Belmont on the West Pennine Moors is home to a nationally important breeding colony of black-headed gulls. This amber-listed protected species has been in decline, so this colony is vital. There were black-headed gulls breeding on the island back in the 1990s, but in summer, when the water levels dropped, predators such as foxes and rats could get onto the island and eat the eggs and young. However, thanks to efforts from the landowners, United Utilities, the channel has been deepened so the island remains a safe haven right through the breeding season. 1 in 14 of Britain's breeding pairs of black-headed gulls now comes to Belmont. And since 2005, they have been joined by around 70 breeding pairs of Mediterranean gulls, which are coming from as far away as Madrid or the Azores to nest on this special little island. How clever are gulls? Well, gulls are fascinating and amazingly intelligent creatures. They will display natural behaviours when there are natural habitats and food choices for them. For example, gulls will throw a mollusk up into the air and let it fall down onto a rock to split the hard shell. But as humans have colonised large stretches of our coastline, these clever birds have had to adapt. When you're sat at the seaside having fish and chips, you can be sure that a gull will be watching you. It has identified that you are eating, and it will wait until an opportunity arises to take its share, and it will stay there until you're finished and any remains are safely in the bin. Gulls can also learn and adapt to human routines, congregating at a landfill site just after the lorries have been to drop off a load of rubbish, or appearing at a school playground just after morning and lunchtime breaks to scavenge scraps. And how to help gulls? Well, the best thing that we can all do to help these beautiful birds is not to feed them. Gulls are amazingly adaptable, but will always be healthier and happier when eating a natural diet, so keep those chips to yourself. And also, if people take part in local beach cleans, that will help to preserve the important natural habitats and food sources that gulls and a whole host of other wonderful marine animals need to survive.
We'll now hear about pools of porcelain. Ceramicist Laura McNicholas creates pieces as unique as the coasts and rock pools that inspire them. Growing up in Leeds, Laura McNicholas spent her holidays visiting family in the northeast, where she developed an early love of beachcombing, exploring the area's rugged rock pools and dramatic coastlines. Now living in Leyland, beachcombing still plays a major part in her life and work, and Laura regularly goes out hunting for driftwood for her distinctive wall hangings. I'm always looking for the ideal pieces that will sit well against the wall, she explains. My 5-year-old son and I often go to Morecambe, Formby and Crosby. Whenever I'm anywhere I can get to a beach, I like to go and see what I can find. I end up in all sorts of places. I was at a market in the Lake District last year, and someone who bought one of my pieces recommended a beach around a 30-minute drive away, so I went for a rummage around. You always get the best pieces after a storm, so while people are closing the curtains against the wind and rain and getting cosy, I'm planning how I'll go out scavenging as soon as it's safe. I've now started to adapt my driftwood wall hangings into tabletop pieces too. Laura is a full-time ceramic artist and founder of Nettleton Pottery. Her beautiful pieces take inspiration from the textures and contours of the coast, and also, quite literally, draw together threads of her family history. She uses antique crochet and lace with a meaningful connection to family members to embellish her work, creating unique imprints and effects. Laura explains, Nettleton Pottery takes my mother's maiden name and reflects the emotional connections to the creative women who have influenced my life and business. My mum actually taught me ceramics and shared with me the beautiful fabrics that my late female relatives had lovingly made using crochet and lace techniques. Each of my collections is named after a family member whose treasured craftwork is used to embellish those pieces. When I was growing up, many of these handmade lace doilies and collars and such were on display around the house, and then my mum gave them to me when I became a full-time artist. I pressed the material into the flat slab before I formed the clay into an organic vessel shape. The beauty of it is that the historic fabrics can be used again and again with an occasional gentle hand wash. Laura works in porcelain to create delicate sculptural forms and bowls, and I admit she's always been a bit of a mucky pup. I've always gravitated towards ceramics. I love getting to grips with the clay and forming pieces with my hands. It feels very natural to me. Laura studied fine art at Reading University before her love of sculpture and ceramics led her to further study, and then a career teaching art and design at a sixth form in Wigan. Even while I was teaching, I was always drawn to ceramics. The problem was I was always too busy to create my own pieces, and as a teacher, you always give your best ideas away. Laura now works from a garden studio, and her work is displayed in around 12 to 15 galleries across the UK, as well as supplying a number of shops. She also attends ceramics-specific art fairs and markets throughout the year. She admits, however, that a small number of pieces don't make it to these outlets. My mum and I have very similar tastes, and quite often she'll spot something I'm working on and find a place for it in her house. It's really flattering because she was an art teacher and talented ceramicist herself, and she has at least one of my pieces in every room. She definitely champions my work. She comes to all the markets with me and enjoys chatting to people about the family heritage involved. There's no doubt Laura comes from a creative family. Her brother also studied glass and ceramics at university. Laura feels that porcelain lends itself well to mirroring different natural surfaces, the smooth interior of a shell, or the sandy surroundings of a rock pool. I like the contrast of a high gloss glaze paired with the more textured exterior. Each piece is completely unique because the glaze has a character of its own and tends to come out slightly differently each time. Laura's pieces are quite time-consuming to create, going through a number of stages before completion. After pressing in any fabric textures and then shaping, they are left to dry for a full week before being biscuit-fired. After this, Laura applies oxides, cobalt oxide for the striking blue pieces and copper oxide for the greens, which are left to dry and then sanded off. This is all done before applying the distinctive glazes and firing again. A single piece can be several weeks in the making. My choice of glazes for the inner surface of my bowls is reminiscent of water pooling within the outer shell, reflecting the sky at different times of day or certain weather conditions, says Laura, but she's aware that art is always open to interpretation. My colour palette is taken from corals and rock pool reflections, but some people with a particular interest in nature have said the driftwood pieces bring to mind colourful lichens or delicate fungi. I find it really interesting to hear what people connect with or how a piece speaks to them. It doesn't matter what I had in mind when I made it. Ultimately, it's about how they engage with it and what it means to them. The driftwood pieces are Laura's favourite ones to work on, as she enjoys experimenting with different compositions. The porcelain elements attached to them are miniature versions of my larger vessels. They're all lace imprinted and go through the same processes. These pieces also went through a thorough process of trial and error. I experimented with glue initially, but now I use a hard-wearing resin to bond the ceramic elements to the wood. I would hate to think that someone might invest in my work and it starts to come apart in the years ahead. They may look delicate, she laughs, but you should see me knocking them about in the studio to make sure they're firmly adhered. Buying art can be a daunting prospect, but Laura's versatile pieces come at an accessible range of price points, from £35 for a trinket dish up to £300 for one of the larger vessels. She has also introduced a collection of uncoloured vessels where the fine white porcelain allows light to shine through, making perfect, almost lunar tea light holders. Laura's distinctive pieces have attracted a dedicated customer base, drawn to her sculptural forms, which are steeped in family history, and celebrate the changing face of rock pools alongside weathered and eroded landscapes. By bringing together shapes and forms, I remember the topography of well-traversed areas across the Yorkshire and Lancashire landscapes. I still get excited by the endless possibilities of layering and combining glazes, constantly experimenting to achieve pieces that are perfectly unique. I have become a collector and retriever, and I repurpose many of the treasured objects I find on my coastal rambles. It's clear that Laura is still passionate about her work, regardless of it also being her full-time job. I love it, even though I do it from 9 o'clock till 5 p.m. If I have any spare time, I still always like to sneak away and have a play, finding new forms and techniques to try. Form, colour, texture and heritage are balanced by my interest in different environments, and I find it endlessly fascinating to explore that connection in the kiln.
And in our final story for this month, we meet the couple whose last-minute decision led to them picking up a prestigious award. Lisa and Joe Little's home may have been named Southport's Home of the Year 2026, but it very nearly wasn't entered at all. With the Open Championship being held at Royal Birkdale from July 12th to 19th, the couple decided to list the property as a short-term rental this summer, capitalising on the thousands of visitors expected to descend on the town. Their agent suggested they enter the competition, organised by local interior designer Claire Mills and photographer Michelle Foster, as a way to raise its profile. I said no at first, Lisa says. It's just not really me. It was only after some further encouragement that she changed her mind, submitting an entry just a few days before the deadline. Even then, she didn't expect anything to come of it. When they rang to say we'd won, I couldn't believe it, she says. It was such a shock. The house, a 4-bedroom detached property, has been completely renovated over the last 5 years. Lisa, who grew up in Skelmersdale, moved to Southport 23 years ago, looking for a fresh start. I had my first daughter quite young. My nan, who raised me, was retiring to Southport, so I followed her. I just wanted somewhere calmer. She found work in hospitality at the Prince of Wales Hotel, where she met Joe. More than 2 decades on, the couple have built a life together, raising a family and taking on a series of projects, including the renovation of their current home. When they bought the house in 2021, it hadn't been updated for a long time. Even so, Lisa knew straight away it was the right place. I just loved how it felt when you walked in, she says. It had a warmth to it. What followed was a full renovation carried out alongside family life and work. Almost every part of the house has been updated. We've redone pretty much everything, Lisa says. Every room, every wall, the outside. It's been a big job. The focus was on making the house work better for them as a family, rather than completely changing it. We didn't want to lose what was already there, she says. It was more about making it practical. At the rear of the property, walls were removed to open up the kitchen and dining space, with bifold doors added to bring in more light. A small extension to the side created a utility room and downstairs toilet. It's made a massive difference, Lisa says. It just works better now. Much of the work was done by the couple themselves. There's not really a DIY job I can't do now, Lisa says. We've learnt everything as we've gone along. Bringing in more light was a key priority throughout the project. We live in the UK. You need as much light as you can get, but it still needed to feel cosy. It's a big house, so that balance is important. The interiors are simple and neutral, with darker details used to add contrast and definition. Nothing too over the top, Lisa says. I just wanted it to feel calm and comfortable. The look has come together gradually rather than being planned in detail from the outset. I'm not a designer, she says. I just go with what I like. That approach hasn't always gone to plan. I painted the whole hallway blue at one point because I thought it would bring a bit of the coast inside, she says. It didn't work at all. I think I knew that quite early on, but I'd already started, so I just carried on. Sometimes you have to try things and live with them for a bit. It's a process that has involved trial and error, with Lisa learning what works and what doesn't, as the house has evolved. Furniture and finishing touches have been sourced over time from a mix of places, from large retailers to independent shops and local finds. Sometimes it takes ages to find what you're looking for, Lisa says. You know what you want, but you don't always know where you're going to find it. You just have to wait until something feels right. Artwork plays an important role in the house, adding personality to the more neutral backdrop. Lisa has made a point of including work by local artists wherever possible. I like supporting local where I can, she says, and it makes it feel more personal. One piece in particular by Southport artist Claire Wright was created specifically for the space following a conversation about perspective. We had this conversation about the universe and how small we are in comparison, Lisa says. It was about not taking life too seriously. She turned that into a piece for us, and it just works. Alongside these more modern additions, original features have been carefully retained and restored. Decorative details such as cornicing, ceiling roses and panelling were uncovered beneath years of paint. There were so many layers. Every time you stripped one back, there was another colour underneath. But once you get them off, you can see how nice it actually is. Outside, original stonework has also been repaired rather than replaced, using specialist techniques to preserve the character of the building. It would have been easier to change things, Lisa says, but we wanted to keep the character. That's part of what makes the house what it is. The renovation has taken place alongside the couple building up their property business. They started by renovating their own home and selling it, repeating the process until they had enough to invest in their first rental property. We didn't have much money when we started. We just kept going. I don't think we realized how quickly it would grow or how much we'd enjoy it. They now run Little Properties Northwest Limited, renovating and renting homes across the region, supported by a small, trusted team of tradespeople they have built up over time. That's taken a while to get right, Lisa says, but having people you trust makes a big difference. Lisa recently sold her gym, From the Block Fitness in Southport, to focus on property full-time. It gives me more flexibility, and it means I can put more time into the properties, which is what we both enjoy. Winning Southport's Home of the Year competition has been a welcome surprise. It's been really nice. We're proud of what we've done here, she says. Now that the work is largely complete, the house is a space the family can properly enjoy, something that feels especially important in a town Lisa has called home for more than 2 decades. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else now, she says. It's such a lovely place. It's always improving, and there's always something going on. And that's the last of our stories from July's edition of Lancashire Life. So from Kathryn and from me, Rick, your readers today, we'd like to thank you for listening, and we'll be back with you in August. Goodbye.